Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Miami Media and Film Market's 11th edition. The 2021 virtual conference is launching now. We are live, and we are so excited that you could join us this year for a very special, very unique year in September. And we are also very happy and proud that we were all, as a team, able to pull all this together and bring you some amazing panels here today. We're very excited, of course, welcoming the first panel, which is going to be our UK Can Do It, featuring some amazingly talented speakers from the UK. We're going to hear very shortly from Adrian Wootton, Helena, Mackenzie, and Stewart Mackinnon, who's going to talk all about film production, TV, digital media in the United Kingdom. We're so excited. But first, with a very special short remarks, I do want to bring in our good friend from the UK Consulate, Mauritz Plenby, who will be saying a few words. Mauritz, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon. I'm Mauritz Plenby. I am the Trade and Investment Officer at the British Consulate here in Miami. My role is to help British production and film companies do business here in the southeast of the US, and also helping American companies do business in the UK. And part of being part of the MMF family for so many years now, and every year is getting stronger and better. So I want to thank Patty and Jose Luis in particular, as well as Amber, for this fantastic event. For me, at least in large part, this is all about international collaboration and really at a high level making both US and UK societies successful. And indeed, the trade between our two countries is over 200 billion, employing over 1 million people in each other's economies. And of course, the creative industry in the UK, which is about 100 billion, is of course a very important part of that, and film is significant as well, with over 150,000 people being employed. In order for all of this to work, in part, apart from the technical talent and the visual effects and all the production houses in the UK, is the part of UK government's positive policy towards the creative industry and film in particular. And as you know, we have a significant tax relief in order to support the industry. So today I look forward to hearing all about beautiful storytelling and reflecting the cultural depth that we all love. Thank you so much. Back to you, Jose.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mauritz. We really appreciate that lovely introduction. And so we're going to turn it over now to our first panel of the day here, which is our UK panel, the UK Can Too. I'd like to first welcome our good friend. He is the Chief Executive of the British Film Commission and Film London, Adrian Wootton. Adrian, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much, JL. Great pleasure to be with you and your audience in Miami. Good morning, and I guess good afternoon for those of you that are also looking in from the UK and Europe. And my only disappointment is that I'm not there in reality with you, that I'm only there actually in terms of virtually. But I've got my special Florida shirt behind me so that you can see I'm with you in spirit.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess I'm going to kick off now before we turn to our other guests and give you a bit of an overview of where we are in the UK in terms of the film, television, media industries. But before I do so, I guess we should maybe show the BFC showreel, which I think gives a nice context of some of the things, some of the content we're involved with being commissioned and made in the UK.
Absolutely, yes. First, we are going to show this amazing reel, the 2021 version of the British Film Commission, which I think wins the competition for best show reel like every year at the conference. So we're always very proud and excited to show this one. So without further ado, here is the BFC show reel.
Name? Bond. James Bond.
The time has come for the social season.
What do you want to be? A performer?
Well?
Yeah, it's horrible. No, thank you.
Welcome to England.
You only get one life.
is our night. Whatever happens, we'll make sure you're safe.
No one wants to be anything other than what they are.
Do you want to be happy, or do you want to be free? I'll be stinking rich.
I am Detective Hercule Poirot, and I will deliver your killer.
The hunt begins.
There's a myriad of universes out there.
Look how far we've come. It's a family united.
These are extraordinary individuals.
Get the e-brake for me, would you, darling?
Oh, for God's sake.
The universe is made of stories. Where anything and everything can happen.
Why don't you start by telling me your earliest memory?
Better get dressed first.
There's a great big world out there with no fence around it. Every day could be an adventure.
Real power lies in understanding who it is you're truly fighting and how they can be defeated.
The world has a way of changing, and we change too. There are moments that separate us, but we always come back together.
I've come back to play.
Let me see. Is it working? Well, that was excellent. Thank you so much for that, Adrian.
My pleasure, JL. Now, I have got a PowerPoint to show. I'm not sure whether we can show it or whether we can't, but if not, I guess I'll just have to chat anyway.
Yes. So we are trying to pull up that actual PowerPoint. We had it this morning. We just lost it on the screen here. So we're just trying to bring it back into the broadcast. And so we are going to keep trying to work on that. I'm going to try it another way here as you're chatting to see if I can bring it up within our screen in terms of what we're trying to do here. And so if not, we'll just have to just kind of go over the highlight and the bullet points of what you guys have been up to, obviously over the past year. And then we can just go ahead and introduce the panel.
Okay, well, let me just start chatting anyway. I mean, the thing is that what the PowerPoint focuses on is the kind of journey, and it's a journey that I guess the global industry, the global film and television industry has been on since the pandemic kicked in. I think that for us in the UK, as it was in the United States, as it was everywhere, it was an extraordinarily challenging time, particularly for us because we had been, and I think I said it in the virtual panel that we did with you last year, that we've been in unprecedented growth. We have a global demand for product. We're very lucky in the UK because we work very hard in terms of creating the conditions to attract that work into the UK with investment in talent, investment, as Mauritz mentioned in his introduction, in terms of our suite of very transparent, very economically robust tax reliefs, the investment in infrastructure. And in 2019, the UK film and television industries, alongside games, alongside animation, was in an incredibly strong position. And in fact, we recorded record growth, something nearly 4 billion pounds worth of production coming into the UK in terms of film and high-end television, and an incredible demand. And actually, we did some work which looked forward and projected what that demand might look like if it carried on for the next 5 years. And it meant that we felt we could almost double the size of investment and production in the UK. And so we started to develop a plan with the government about how we could respond to that demand. And that sort of came in two ways, really, in terms of both studio space. We needed to build millions more square feet of studio space, and also in terms of skills. Then the pandemic came in, threw everything up in the air, froze production. And what we had to do was to rebuild quickly, because we had a choice. We either had to, wait for just government support and handouts for people, and people being unemployed, not being able to work, or we could build new guidance, new protocols to actually get people back to work. And with the support of the government and a gigantic industry effort, we introduced new guidance. The British Film Commission introduced that with the nations and the regions UK-wide. Film London developed that for the capital, and we restarted production, and pretty much all production went back to work. Starting in July, the government also produced a special indemnity scheme to fill the gap in insurance, and we basically got something like 90% of production back by the end of last summer. And then what we saw, rather remarkably, was the demand curve went even crazier, because the appetite for the streamers, the appetite for content, I think, which had also partly been fueled by the pandemic, just got bigger and bigger, until we got to a situation where actually it was bigger than it was before the pandemic. And that was a remarkable situation for us. So what we saw was that we had to move very quickly to carry on with the development, work with investors to build new studios, and to start doing more and more and more to invest in skills. And we realized that we had to grab this opportunity. And I think that's an opportunity that, we've been talking to our friends. We also went through our departure from Europe, and that was a big thing as well. And we've had to reach out and work very closely with our industry friends across Europe and start to build new partnerships and new relationships, so that we don't have any barriers between us working with Europe in the post-EU context. And that's been a very important part of the work of Film London and the British Film Commission. And so what you can see really at the moment is that we're trying to be ambitious, and we're trying to be outward looking. We're trying to be proactive, not reactive. We're not being complacent. What we're doing is we're investing more in infrastructure, and I'm delighted to say, and it's actually also from US. The US investors are coming in to help build out more studio space. We're seeing an extraordinary amount of film and television made. Our games industry is responding, our animation industry is responding, and we're also now investing in a gigantic skills program. BFI is doing a review, which we're involved in, and actually we're in the process of submitting a very large-scale bid supported by the Mayor of London to develop our skills workforce for the next generation, so that we can keep on meeting this demand. Of course, there are challenges. You can't train people overnight. It takes time. You can't build building studios overnight. But what we are doing is we're doing it at speed and intensity, and there is a collective joined-up effort about this. And I think there's also the great thing from our point of view is that we have the support of the regional government in the Mayor of London, and we have the support of the national government. And you combine that with a sort of unity, I think, and this is important, because we've had a great friendship with Miami, and we've done an awful lot of things. I think partnership is such a core part of this partnership with our friends across the industry. The industry came together in an unprecedented way because of the pandemic and worked together across every level: employers, employees, infrastructure, content producers. And I think we also recognized that we needed our partners, our domestic partners, but our international partners to work with us, to want to develop stories, our international partners in Europe, but our international partners elsewhere, including, of course, Miami, and our ongoing conversations about content opportunities between our different territories, regions, countries. So this is a sort of long-winded way of saying that we went through a terrible period, but actually we combated that terrible period. We got off, we hit the ground running, we developed new procedures, we developed new ways of working, we're building new infrastructure, we're training more people, and we're reaching out for more and more partnership, because we believe that we might be an island, but we can only succeed if we have a network of partnerships and fruitful friendships like we have with Miami Film and Media Market to carry on for the future. And I know Stewart's going to say something about that, particularly because of developing different kinds of content, for example, for the Latin American market. And I think producers in this country are thinking differently about this. They're thinking about how they don't just do things domestically, but how they do things internationally, how they do things globally. And I think that's what the UK wants to do. That's what the UK is focusing on doing, because we want to keep on this momentum, because actually we're one of the industries in the UK that really is an aid to recovery, to economic recovery, to social recovery, to cultural recovery in the post-pandemic world. And at that point, you know, I know we haven't got the PowerPoint up, but maybe I'll stop there, and maybe we show the Film London showreel to kind of wrap that up.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And I'm actually, and I know that this was a little technical glitch on our end that we couldn't get the showreel, but what you just said, Adrian, was so beautifully said, so natural, and that's why you are always one of our favorites here at MMFM, because that was a very impressive monologue, I have to tell you. Shakespeare would be proud. But yes, we are going to turn it over now to the Film London showreel, which is the follow-up to the BFC showreel. And then we'll bring in the rest of the panel at the 2021 MMFM Virtual, which is brought to you by our good friends at CAMACOL. We love our partners at CAMACOL. We're at their studio right now. I have to give a shout out to our amazing executive producer, Patty Arias, who's here, our president, Joe Chi, who's going to come in a little later on. Adrian just gave a shout out to Patty. So we're all just getting, and Joe, we're all getting the morning started here, or the afternoon in some cases. And let's just hit it up now with the Film London showreel.
This is London.
Oh, Mr. Gruber, it's wonderful.
This is a love story.
What did you say your name was again?
David Copperfield.
Guess we'll see you on the weekend then.
Stay away from the girls!
Oi, you getting on?
Yeah.
There it is, the Eiffel Tower.
5 cups of tea, please.
Hey, dear.
Do you think I could have tea?
want to fight, and I want to win.
Thanks.
People say I inspire them.
Where are you?
Look up.
Wow, that was invigorating. Thank you so much for the second show reel for Film London.
Pleasure. And just to say, JL, that probably reminds me to say that, and I'm sure Helen will talk about it, that in the context of what I said at the beginning, it's also worth emphasizing our commitment to diversity and inclusion in terms of skills training and work that we're doing with the industry and to environmental sustainability, both of which is reflected in that show reel.
Right.
That's my little addendum there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for, I'd like to chat a little bit with Helena because I know that she works so hard along with you, Adrian, in doing all the fine work that you all do at Film London. So now I want to give a little close-up shot to Helena and tell her a little bit about the work that she does as head of inward investment for Film London. You're on, Helena. Tell us a little bit more about you and all the amazing work that you do.
I think I have a nod in the background too to Miami with my little palm tree there. You know, that's the nearest to Miami I'm going to get.
Right.
But basically, Adrian and I work very closely together on the inward on many things, but in particular the inward investment and the business development side of things. So my job's twofold really. The inward investment is kind of, it is what it, does what it says on the tin there. It is about production attraction. So we spend a lot of time, talking to international producers from wherever, getting them to come and shoot in London. And I always say I don't have too difficult a job in many ways in that respect. I mean, it's not too hard to talk about London. I could bang on about it for ages, like I promise you. So, but I won't today. But we have, huge amounts of talent in London in front of and behind the screen. And we at Film London, what we do is try to make your job easier when you are on the ground with us. So we've got a whole team of people that can look after all the needs and requirements you have from coming over to us in the first place, with accommodation and other sort of partners that we have, but also on the ground filming and with our locations team ready to help you at any moment. So recently, as Adrian was saying, we've done a lot of work because of the huge rise in production that we've seen over the years, and the need for studio space has been a key part of our job. And we've all had to get, I mean, not just us, but production companies too, location managers and line producers have all had to get very creative about what they consider to be a studio these days. And so we have done a lot of repurposing of old warehouses and old fruit and veg distribution, buildings that, we kind of go, don't do anything with it. We can do something with it. And say our teams and production teams in general are very clever at seeing past this old building and making it into a studio. So, right. We've had to do that for necessity because of all the productions coming in, as Adrian said. But we have, over the last few years, uncovered a huge amount of space there's a particular area in North London called Enfield, which has a rather large streamer in the borough, and so much so that we kind of refer to Enfield as Enflix at the moment, and because that is the streamer that seems to be there most of the time. We've uncovered something like over 500,000 square meters of space in that borough alone, so that there are new studios being built there. And there's a massive new studio build over in the east part of London in Barking and Dagenham, which has got a lot of American investment in through Hackman MBS, which is in Barking and Dagenham, which is great. That's going to be online from the end of this year, and the new build will start next year. And then we've got Garden Studios, which is a new studio with a new in-house VP production. There's quite a lot of VP production going on now in London as well, which actually means that perhaps before, where we couldn't provide some locations like mountains, maybe we can now, because it's all VP.
Yeah.
So, it's a one-stop shop. So that's our job, is to get people to come and shoot in London. And our business development side of things is really to help producers on the ground. London producers, Adrian talked about partnerships. We are really, really big time into partnerships, international partnerships, working with people like yourself and facilitating connections and putting people together. We kind of know our producer base. There's a lot of them in London, and we know the kind of levels that they can work at. So if you are looking for someone to coordinate with and to collaborate with, then definitely come and ask us and see, and I'm sure we'll be able to help you.
Yes, and I know that you can, because one of the amazing collaborators that you've introduced into our circle, of course, is a great producer out of the UK who's on the panel today, which I want to bring him in now and chat a little bit with Stewart Mackinnon, who is an incredible producer and collaborator from the UK side of things that is now working with us on a few projects. So thank you so much for all that you do, Helena.
Pleasure.
All righty. Stewart, you are up next, my friend. How are you, sir?
I was wondering, I'm fine. I was wondering who you were going to introduce all this kind of this sort of glamorous producer. It's just a guy sitting here in Northumberland dreaming about stories. But thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely, but that's how it all starts, right?
one of the I have to say that watching these showreels from London and from Adrian and Helena's showreels, the magic of cinema, just I remain in awe of the kind of skills and talent of people who make these shows. I really do. I think it's still the child in me that, and as I watch this and watch the opening of the film London show, the animation, it reminds me of a film I made 2 or 3 years ago, which was a show I did in partnership with Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital charity. And as some people know, but most people don't, is that Peter Pan, the story of Peter Pan, was written by a man called Jane Barry many years ago. He gifted the rights to this children's hospital, then a private hospital, which he lived next door to. He was a trustee. Subsequently, after the Second World War, the hospital was nationalised, but the gift that Barry gave to this hospital brings children from all around the world for treatment. And so anyway, the long and short of it is, I won't go into this, the background to the story, but the film we made this connection between an author, a hospital that looks after kids, and a movie that was into a movie. And I think that often I have to remind myself, on one hand, as Adrian and Helena have been talking about, it's a tough and important business that employs huge numbers of people, involves extraordinary talent and partnerships, both on the finance side. But on the other, it's a sort of making magic, it's making fantasy, and talks about the issues that are important in our lives. And I think the thing that I wanted to talk about today, which is principally television, but I think television in many ways catching up with what film has always done, which is film would reach global audiences. Television, for all kinds of interesting reasons, was principally, until a few years ago that is, it was principally aimed at domestic audiences. It was highly regulated, unlike the film business. So what I thought it would be, I don't know, you must stop me, Joel, if this is not of interest to your audience, but when I first started in the industry, it was in television in the UK, and that was, as I say, principally aimed at domestic audiences. And I had the privilege of working in this industry, working with for these many, many years, over 20, 30 years in the television industry. And then there was a change which I thought would be helpful to, or maybe of interest to your audience. I picked up the rights to a book, an American author, pitched us to the BBC. This is how the industry would, as an independent producer's point of view, would work. You pitch a story to the UK broadcaster. The broadcaster, if they were interested, liked it. We put up development funding, which in this instance happened. We developed this story as a mini-series. It was a 3-part series. Very prominent British writer. Developed over a couple of years. But in the end, as often is the way with independent, the BBC decided to pass on the show. It was a lot of discussion. They'd made something not dissimilar some years before, and it was decided they would do something different. And literally 3 or 4 days after they passed, I had a call from Mr. Amazon, boss of Amazon, who said, "Stewart, we know about this book, tracking it. Could you make it? Could you produce it?" And so a few hours later, I talked to BBC. Show was released, and 3 months later, we were in production in Canada. And 4 years later, we'd made 40 hours based on this book.
Wow!
Wholly funded by Amazon. And when this started maybe more than 5 years ago, we were in a very different world. It was Netflix. Netflix was growing. Amazon was just the new guy on the block. But in these 5, 6, 7 years, their industry, the business side of our industry has radically changed. I mean, in an exciting way. I'm sure we could spend, I know I could spend a long time talking about the consequences of this change, the opportunities, and also the downside and the upside, the risks, the opportunities. And something that Adrian and Helena touched on was partnerships. One of the things that excites me is that, and this is where I began a moment ago, talking about my kind of journey in this business, is that the partnerships I had principally were in the UK and in Europe, some in Spain, some in Germany, some in France, but principally in the UK. In these last 4 or 5 years in television, that has really changed, and the opportunity for partnerships around the world have just opened up. And they've opened up not just because the platforms reach an international market, but because the nature of the business itself requires new partnerships. So you had, on one hand, a defense of around the world of our respective cultures. We'd all make television for our domestic audience. This is in television. But now, as a producer, you have to think of an audience in Asia, an audience in South America, an audience in Latin America, in Asia. And I think that requires new kinds of partnership, a new way of thinking about storytelling. No longer a defense of the way in which we tell stories in the UK or the way in which stories are told in the US, but the way in which we tell universal stories. So one of the things, going back to when I started talking about, which is the story I developed with Amazon, was Nanai Castle. People may or may not know seen it or read the book, but it's a story about what if fascism had not been beaten in the Second World War, and we were living under a fascist state. And the kind of underlying theme of the novel and the underlying theme of the series was to say to everyone in the world, to ask everyone, to invite everyone in the world, say, what would it be like if we lived under this kind of politics, this kind of regime?
Right.
And so the the sort of point I would highlight in this discussion today would be, and it's echoing what Helena and Adrian have said, is that the opportunities for partnerships around the world are real and tangible, both from a business point of view, but also from a cultural point of view.
Wow.
So if I want to put together a show, as I described when I would knock on the door of the BBC or Channel 4 or ZDF or TF1 in France, until recently they would wholly finance the show. Now, because of all kinds of other issues, pressures on audiences, pressure on budgets, increase in budgets, higher standards, audiences' expectations getting higher and higher. You require the domestic broadcaster, by necessity, has to look for partnerships with other territories. And as you do that, you have to accommodate the interests of these different and the likes of these different cultures. Right. So it's both a change which is it's challenges, but real opportunities. And where I think the real opportunities lie for the independent producer in the world now, and the necessity is to build relationships and to build partnerships. And one of the big opportunities I can see is that there are markets in the world, partly because of history, partly because of culture, partly because of language, are now beginning to think, let's partner, let's find partners in Latin America, in parts of Europe, which hitherto have been closed to their respective world.
Yeah, no,
so that's my kind of. I'm just sharing trying to link partly my own journey through television into this change.
Yeah, and I think you did a very good job of that, Stewart. Like, very elegant how you kind of framed that whole conversation in terms of your own personal journey as a producer, but also talking so much about partnership and collaboration. And so I think I'd like to bring some of your colleagues back in now. We'll just have a little group chat for a few minutes, and then we'll see if we have time for a couple of Q&A. If not, I know a lot of folks already want to speak to you guys offline as well. So let's bring the full panel back in. Welcome back, everyone. Again, thank you so much. This is always such a great way to start the conference, is speaking everything about the UK's film industry, not only from a production standpoint, but also from a creative standpoint, and all the work that someone like Stewart has done, developing properties, mining IPs, understanding not just the regional, but the global audience. How important is that today? I'll throw that one to Adrian.
Well, it's absolutely critical, and I'm sure Helena can come in here. But the truth of the matter is that, I talked about the tax reliefs, I talked about infrastructure, and but ultimately the strength of the British film industry, yes, and television and games and animation, but the strength is on ideas. It's on ideas, it's on content, and that comes from people. That comes from the talent, the creative talent. And actually, what we've been able to do in the UK, for a very small country, we've been able to harness, nurture, generate creative talent. You saw it in the showreel that Film London's got a lot of talent programs with developing talent. Helena's got a scheme called Breakthrough, which looks at first features and how they get in the marketplace. We've had a microwave scheme. We've got we fund short filmmakers. We corral people like Stewart to come and talk to them, and we have our Equal Access Network, which has thousands of young people from the diverse communities of London who we're placing in jobs every day of the week at the moment. And that's the lifeblood. The UK film industry could have all the infrastructure it wanted and all the tax reliefs it wanted, but if it hasn't got the creative talent and is supporting that creative talent and feeding that creative talent, then we have nothing. And it's those creative talent that we're essentially at the service of, because that creative talent, like Stewart, wants to work with other creative talent and wants to work with other creative talent around the UK, but it wants to work with creative talent around the world. That's what Stewart's talking about. Creative talent likes to gravitate to each or other, and they're not interested in boundaries. They're not interested in obstacles between countries. They're interested in in how they can work together, how they can tell stories together, how they create things that people want to see, want to experience, want to consume. And that's the great pleasure that we have, is being able to kind of work with that talent and just help them a little bit, whether it's nurturing their early careers or whether it's actually them coming to us and saying, we need a dirty great studio to do Lord of the Rings, or we need to be able to do this, and I think people recognize that that's what we're there for. We're there to help them with their visual vocabulary, their lexicon. We're there to give them the tools or the toys to be able to actually create.
Oh, you definitely have a lot of toys. Go ahead.
Because Stewart, when we first met Stewart, was actually on a trip to China. When we first really got to know Stewart, was actually one of our outbound trips to China. And it's not until you spend time with your producers, our London-based producers, and looking at what they're doing and spending some time with them, particularly when you're in an international territory, particularly one that's as interesting as China and as difficult as China, or however it might be, but you get to know what they can and can't do and everything. So that was the basis. That's how we first got to know Stewart. And so then that stays in your mind that when something comes up later on, which as it has done with Stewart, when we've been out in Miami and we've met more Miami producers, we kind of go, well, hang on a minute, they've got this project and we know Stewart can do this. And, we're all, you can't do this unless you're in it together. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but we've all got to be in it together to make it work and to make it be deliverable. And that's on mine and Adrian's side, as well as the creative talent side as well. And we've got to have an understanding about how people work, internationally. So, and they've got to be wanting to work internationally. So we love it. We love working internationally. It's not just about London. Of course, we want people to come to London and make something, but if it's a co-production with London, that's totally fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you touched on this idea of working internationally. I know that's been a little challenging, obviously, just dealing with the reality of the last year and a half, correct? Yeah. So how excited are you guys now, hopefully as things take a turn for the better, in getting back out there and meeting folks again and welcoming folks into the UK and vice versa?
Let's just chip in. I mean, maybe Stewart should come in, but certainly from my point of view, I was at the Venice Film Festivals, the first film festival I've been to in nearly 2 years, just a few weeks ago, seeing representatives from the European film industries talking about collaboration. I introduced my first film on stage for 2 years in Venice at this August theatre with a whole group of filmmakers from all over Europe who'd contributed to this film called Isolation. And it was such a fantastic feeling to be engaging with filmmakers again, to be engaging with audiences again, and really feeling that there was that creative pulse. And I know that there's a massive appetite. Certainly Helen and I are talking to our friends in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, in France about all kinds of things we want to do. In the same way as we're talking to you about, the collaborations we are doing, concrete collaborations we are doing with Miami, and that's because there is a real appetite and enthusiasm, and it's because of people like Stewart who want to work with people from all over the world, and we want to help facilitate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that makes so much sense. And I think sort of what this new normal may look like, hopefully, other than getting back to obviously meeting folks, traveling again, being part of the communal experience of cinema in particular, right? Is also the idea that now we actually have the advantage of being able to be hybrid, because technology is to a point that we can connect with folks from all over the world and bring more folks in, which was kind of challenging when you had to deal with all the logistics. So I think that there is room for both the sort of virtual connections as well as the real life ones.
You're doing it now, and Helena, I mean, you're a few weeks away from the production finance market, which is exactly that, isn't it, Helena?
Yeah, it's 2 days of, intense one-to-one, back-to-back meetings with financiers and producers. And of course, we had to pivot very quickly last year to kind of put that online. None of us knew what the hell we would do. We made it up as we went along, but we delivered it at the end of the day. And it worked pretty well. So actually, we're doing it again online this year because we just felt it was the safest option. But obviously, at the same time, nothing beats being in a room with, 200 people either doing business or 200 people having a glass of white wine and a couple of peanuts at a networking event. I mean, so.
Yeah.
like being in Miami, which we'll be with you again.
Particularly in Miami.
With Stewart. We've got to get Stewart to Miami.
Oh, yes.
It's one of the, getting to know you all, getting to know as Helena and Adrian and you, Joe. What is so exciting is that, we're all in our respective bubbles. We're all on the internet. We're all on our computers. We're all watching frightening news, of environmental issues, of political issues, of crazy politics, of really tragedy all the time. And yet we get a glimpse through of the work that's shown in these two show rails. I just think, wow, this is the way in which another part of our lives that's not reflected in anything other than in this way on the cinema and in television, on a daily basis drama that both takes us out of our, the tough world that we're in, gives us great pleasure, reflects our lives, reflects our dreams, reflects our hopes. And this level of what you're doing in Miami and what, is being done by the Film Commission in London and in London, actually binds that brings these people together, the creatives, brings money together, brings the technology. If you think of this extraordinary development, technological development, that you can watch something on your phone as well as drop off into some enormous cinema. So I think that for me, that culture and what we do in this business, dealing with light and magic and sound, is just so special. And yet, and it's organizations like you, both your organizations that you represent. Without those, we'd be keeping our fingers crossed. We wouldn't know what was going on in different corners of the world.
Right.
So I go back to this idea of that was talked about by Helena and Adrian, is the need for partnerships. And I just think that the facilitating partnerships, the encouragement of partnerships is the gold. Without it, you don't have anything.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is all about relationships and kind of continuing to build on those. And I think that's obviously important for our audience as well, is to really understand that no matter how you can connect, whether it's live, virtual, or something in between, I think just keeping those connections and establishing those are so critical, especially as this industry is looking to rebuild itself now, moving into the future, right?
Absolutely. I think we wouldn't be able to recover. We wouldn't be able to contribute to our economy. We wouldn't be able to produce the jobs in, London, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England. We wouldn't be able to put our creative people to work and let their imaginations fly unless we have real collaboration, real partnership, and connectivity in that way, and however that connectivity is done, and that's certainly our whole raison d'etre. And I'm glad. I mean, Stewart has been a very good friend of ours for a long time, but Stewart recognises that's what we're about. We're not about being exclusive. We're about being inclusive. It's the only way we can succeed. Because you punch massively above your weight when you have friends.
Right.
You work with those friends. That's it.
Right.
And that is the DNA of the work that we do at Film London, what the British Film Commission does, of what the UK film, television, animation, and games industries do. And increasingly, they're as and we'll talk about animation tomorrow. But there's all sorts of exciting skills, technology, content convergence happening now between these different previously siloed industries, which is going to generate even more new content. We can't even imagine what it's going to look like, in a few years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see how things are evolving. Just now, we're broadcasting to a closed, basically a conference platform. And so we're getting sort of questions and folks just kind of chiming in as they're listening to you talk while they're also chatting virtually with each other. So it's just fascinating to see. I think we only have time actually for one question. It's from an indie filmmaker. And so what would be the approach? I guess this is more for Film London or the BFC in terms of low budget indie projects looking to collaborate with the UK. Are there specific thresholds that you're looking for, or do you welcome films and projects across all levels of budget?
I think it's fair to say that we welcome films with all thresholds of budget. I mean, it's obviously the project being right, for the indie producer and for a collaborator in the UK. And I think that the truth is, and I'm sure Stewart would echo this, is that if you're thinking about either making a project in the UK or working in the UK, it's always good to reach out to organisations like us and talk to us. And then reach out to other practitioners, the stewards of this world, or other people that are maybe making some of the same kind of things, because it's always much easier to get something done if you're collaborating with someone on the ground that can help you navigate. Certainly, there are the fiscal incentives. If you're making the film wholly or largely in the UK and you're collaborating with British talent using British facilities, etc., then the tax credit really doesn't have a kind of a threshold about the size of budget you have to have. Pretty much every low budget film in the UK qualifies for the UK tax credit, and in fact there are almost no British films that could get made without being able to access the UK tax credit. That's part of its structure. So it's not just for big movies, but it's for small movies as well. Television has a higher threshold. Television, if you're making television to qualify for tax credit, it has to have it's £1 million an hour, or £500,000
right
per half hour. But for film, you can access the tax credit at a very low level.
Yeah, so that's good to know. But yeah, go ahead.
The production finance market, which is in a couple of weeks that I just mentioned, obviously too late for that now, but for next year we have a call for applications for an independent film from across the world to apply to come, and it's 2 days of meeting with financiers. So it's not a co-production market, it's a finance market. But do look on our website, do sign up for the newsletter, follow us on Twitter and all the various social medias, and then you'll be notified of all these things that we do that you may be able to be part of.
Yeah, no, that's a great advice. And that was actually going to be my last point, is how to get in touch with you directly, through your social media handles, through your websites. And, I know you've always been very open to collaborating and to receiving new projects. So thank you again for all that you do on behalf of your industry and also your collaborations, particularly your friendship with Miami. So thank you so much for doing this.
We love working with you, JL and Patty and John. So yeah, it's great to be part of this again.
Absolutely. Well, that was an extraordinary panel. Once again, I want to thank our guests from the UK. They're doing such an extraordinary job over there. And it's just been, a wonderful morning so far in terms of welcoming panels and guests. We are going to now take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back in 15 minutes when we're going to be bringing on our screenwriting masterclass with the one and only Karen Hall. She is an award-winning screenwriter. You will have seen her on many, many shows, from MASH to The Good Wife, to The Glades, which was filmed locally here in South Florida. Such a body of work, and she's going to be doing an amazing masterclass. Before we turn it over to that, I did want to kind of shift back to our welcoming remarks and speak about a very good person involved in all of this on behalf of CAMACOL President Joe Chi. Joe, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Can you see me okay?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you. And so I'd love for you just to address our audience and say a few words on behalf of CAMACOL as well, the Latin Chamber of Commerce.
It's really delightful that we could do this conference this year, even though it's in a hybrid fashion, part of the virtual, but the last portion for the folks, we're holding it live. To say that number one, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the 11th edition of Miami Film and Media Market. Virtually this year, however, next year, June, hopefully, and we believe that we will be able to do so, it will become live. I'd like to thank Miami-Dade County, especially Miami-Dade County Commissioner Raquel Realado, who's been very supportive of our efforts here. At the same time, I'd like to thank the Convention Bureau for all their help and all their sponsorship as well. I would also like to thank our platform, Stage 10, for the magnificent rendition which they are allowing us here internationally. And one more sponsor, which is very interesting because Helena was mentioning something about meeting Stewart when they went to China. We actually do have a Chinese sponsor here as well. It's a liquor company. It's the second largest liquor company in China. It's called Fengjiu. And interestingly, talking about history and the different historical recastings that Stewart has spoken about, this company also that they were the original inspiration for Irish whiskey, in which back in those days, during the 70s, what happened was a lot of these distilling technology was actually transferred to the Arabians in over 1,000 years ago. And then when the Irish Christian monks came to the Crusades, during that time they learned the distilling techniques, and they took it back to England, to Ireland, and that's so. I would like to say that listening also to Adrian, it's also an inspiration on all the different things that he does. I don't know how he does it. There must be at least 5 or 6 different names that I don't know about who are working with. Stewart Mackinnon, I'm a fan of the Castle. Seeing you for the first time here on screen and I think Stewart is really the man in the high castle. Who knows? So it's a pleasure meeting all of you, and at the same time, in June, Helena, so your palm tree behind you on a picture becomes a reality.
Yes, that was very well said. Thank you so much, Joe, for your kind words. And, I think it's a great way to kick off the conference, our collaboration between the UK, Miami Media and Film Market, CAMACOL, the Latin Chamber, showing sort of the international reach of everything that we do locally, nationally, and beyond. So thank you so much, Joe, for everything you do on behalf of the Chamber and the Miami Media and Film Market. Awesome. And so we are so excited now to bring you another panel coming up very shortly. So you want to stay tuned. In just a few minutes, we'll be back with the Karen Hall Masterclass, the No BS Screenwriting School, which is going to be very exciting and interesting. So we will see you in a little bit.